are hot. Full speed ahead. Bang, bang, you're dead. Mic check, mic check. Good morning, Eden. Good evening, Eden. Hi, CCP, and welcome, CCP Okami. It's so good for me to be back on this channel, but it's also very good to have you, CCP Okami, as a guest for the first time. Welcome, Okami.
Thanks, man. Yeah,
Yeah.
super good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and thanks for making it happen at these strange times. I was already wrestling these times with Ratadi last month, but for those of you that might not know, I am currently temporarily in Australia, and that means that for me it is a nice sunny Sunday morning, and in Europe it's getting close to midnight here, and we have North America with a leisurely Saturday afternoon. They have it best right now, don't they?
We have a nice sunny 11 p.m. here in Iceland.
Oh, I love that. Love that. I'm very, very, very jealous of that. So, yeah, quick introduction for those of you that don't know who I am. I am Oz. I am not only on the CSM, but I also do a weekly look at the monthly economic report, or a monthly look at the monthly economic report, and a weekly look at the EVE markets with my Oz report. And I cover generally anything economics related in EVE Online. And so this month, what we thought we would do is we would take the regular MER show and bring it to the CCP channel and have Okami as a guest who is the game design director at EVE Online. Okami, can you tell us what that actually means in a day-to-day context?
Yeah, what is a game design director? The best way I talk about it to people is just saying I design the design team. So really, we have a group of very talented designers that do everything from make content in Eve, like missions and like sites and things like that, balance the game, come up with the next features, and I'm trying to coordinate all of them across multiple teams, listen to the community, talk to you folks, and try to take in input into everything we're doing so that we're balancing things in the right way and everything like that. And work with other folks like Ratati, who you've had on here before as well, to coordinate all of that.
Perfect. And we've seen that you've been interacting with the community a lot, and you're getting almost legend status on Reddit, I would say. Is that something you register?
Yeah, I mean it's fun. I do this for the community, right? Like I make games for people, and so to me it's really important to be interacting with the people that I make games for. And it's been a really good journey. I think actually, Oz, you helped kicked it off. I think I was watching your stream once, and you were like, "Oh, yeah, there's something I can't say," and I was just like, "I can say it. I'm gonna say it," and I did, and it's been a really good journey.
I love that. I think the March 12th patch and the March 12th dev letter that came with it was one of the most positive responses that I've ever seen in the EVE community. So kudos to you and the team. I think you're on a very good path, and I know you've been trying to keep up with the regular updates that you promised. Another one came out yesterday on the EVE Discord. Is that the channel that you're going to be communicating most going forward, or?
Yeah, Discord's kind of my jam. I know, like, I get a lot of feedback around, like, I wish it could be like this or like that. And for me, it's just the easiest place to most directly talk to folks. So if you want to hear more frequently from me or just engage with us, like, get in there. Come visit the official Discord, and I'll be posting updates as regularly as I can. And I'm, aiming for every 2 weeks to have something to say.
Great. And so before we jump in the MER, in the update yesterday, you announced, I think, an update for the 24th. Can you tell us a little bit about that? What's in there?
Yeah, I had an announcement in our Dev Updates channel in Discord. So there is an update coming on the 24th. There's a bunch of stuff in it. I'm not gonna spoil everything. It's some of the fun is opening the present on the day of, but we're gonna see a bunch of our little things coming in, and this is a panel that we had at FanFest. So we had a lot of great participants there, and there's a thread in our official forums as well. So if you have feedback around just like tiny things that can make the game better, please go visit that forum. And yeah, so we've got a bunch of updates from that. We also have a few balance changes coming, so we're going to be adjusting some things with Pyrite, mostly aiming at HiSec right now. So we know that Pyrite's been a bit challenging, so that will be coming to alleviate that. We have some fixes around Wardex as well. There's been some fun loopholes and things happening around that lately. I know that the community's been pretty vocal about it, so we do have a few things coming there as well. And I guess the other one I'll mention. So previously, I'd talked about us delivering the delivery contribution method for freelance projects. That won't be in this update, so I just want to make that clear to folks. But it will be coming this summer, so it will be coming very soon.
Yeah, very good. I think Corbs and others like this guy are waiting for ways to engage with players and actually get paid for or get items delivered and not only pay capsuleers. I think that's going to add another dimension to the freelance project. So that's why the community is hotly awaiting that. Just to mention the little things, some of the little things are quite big in terms of community impact. So I'll give you an example. One of the things that I've fought for, one of the little things I fought for over the last year was being able to buy multiple sell orders at once at the actual price that they were listed. It used to be that you would buy them and you would buy them all at the same price that you put in, which is, not very logical, but it's also frustrating. Great for sellers, but frustrating if you're buying a lot of items, if you're an alliance or an investor. And now that was fixed, and that's quite small. But for traders and alliance leaders, I think that's quite big. So some of these small things go really a long way.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. So look out for that. There'll be some pleasant little treats in there.
Nice. So jumping over to the MER, I'll pull up the graphs in a second, but I maybe just want to have a general look at where we're at right now in the EVE economy. Frankly, it's a good time for you to jump on a stream with me because there have been months where the MPI threw up a lot of questions and pointed out a lot of actions. This month, if we look at the MPI overall, production is up massively, which is part Babaroga and part war preparations, I think.
Yeah.
So it's 9% up from where we were previously, which was already a very high level. Mining has been up since March, pretty much. Sinks and faucets are very balanced. Historically speaking, we've had an issue there the last 1-2 years that we had an increasing money supply. Now the balance is back. Is there anything left to do for you, Okami? When you look at this, you see what are the levers that you're still attacking?
No, I think that's it. We did it, and that's it. Good night. That was the whole
All right,
review.
stream over.
We did it. Stream over. No, yeah, absolutely. There are always things that we're looking at ongoing. Like I think we've done a phenomenal job with mining overall in nullsec, for example. But there's a lot of love that needs to go into the rest of the universe. Even just having some pirate adjustments coming out, for example, like pirate's still in a weird place. We know that like Moongoo, for example, as well, is still kind of in a funky spot because of Metanox. So these are all things that we're still thinking about, and we'll keep adjusting into the future. Looking at capital ship manufacturing and the various bottlenecks that still exist there, and making sure that things are in a good enough balanced spot to meet demands, etc. So there's still lots of little things for us to keep tending to. But yeah, this is this is a good spot to come on and be like, hell yeah, high five Oz, let's go.
Yeah, and just to not make it too easy for you, I think. I mean, I have the opportunity to voice this as part of the CSM as well, but I think two of the big issues that I hear from the community still, economically speaking, are one is the MPI is still very high, so we've brought it down quite a bit. We'll look at the graph right now, but the MPI is still, very high, and Pyrite is a good place to start. But I think one one other thing, and that's the second point, is that certainly super capital ships are still very, very expensive to the point that they're hardly being used at all. And so I think those are two things that the community feels are things that could still be attacked, just to make the big battles that we're seeing right now even bigger, and get people to bring out their big
Yeah,
boys.
yeah, absolutely. Those are great points. So MPI is still pretty high to me. Um, it's a good and a bad thing. It's a good thing to me because it's come down to a more reasonable spot. So we've seen some good impacts. But the good part to me means that there is room for us to do things. And I think over the course of this year, we'll see some smaller adjustments to just the rebalancing of mining and other parts of space, and then maybe some other more interesting and exciting things later on that I can't quite talk about super in depth yet, but it means we have room to play. So yeah.
Great. So I'm gonna jump over here into the graphs and see if this works. The transition magic. There we go. Perfect. So I don't know if this was you're doing Okami, or if this was before you took over, but the intro I really like. I think I've had a lot of positive feedback from the community to this as well, like a little bit of an uh, of a interpretation of the results. I think this month is quite short, but then again, it's it's not as controversial this month. In month where we're seeing very strange numbers, or some numbers that aren't as obvious to the community, um, doing the write up, I think goes a very, very long way for the community to understand where CCP is standing, even without these types of streams or communications that you do on Discord. So please keep doing that, and the longer, the better.
Awesome. Yeah, not my doing. I won't take credit for it. This is totally our data folks, I believe.
Awesome.
But yeah, we'll keep this up. Glad for the feedback. Thank you.
What's in the write up this month is what I already mentioned. So we had production already at a very high level, and it went up another 9%, which isn't surprising in hindsight, because this was the tail end of war preparations. It wasn't the war kicked off for real really this past week. So I think it went into June. So we're not seeing a lot of war economy yet in this economic report, but you are seeing definitely preparations. Plus, you're seeing the massive impact that the Babaroga has had. I covered that on my stream last week. I mean, Babaroga went immediately into the top 5 traded items in the week in all of Eve, and that includes Plex and skill injectors. It was the most traded item outside of the Plex adjacent items. Is that something you register, like you have an expansion, and one of the ships is wildly popular? Like, what's your thinking there?
Yeah, I mean, of course we register it. Just watching the data from the inside, and that we have a handle on it. Um, it's cool to watch. I think sometimes you don't anticipate or expect how good or how popular something might be. Like I think sometimes you come out and you're like, this is going to do well. This will be an interesting ship. In Revenant, I think we had a couple of interesting ships, but they're very niche, and now I think we've got
Mhm.
a couple more mainline ships. So it is cool to see. I think it's about as popular or maybe a little bit more than I anticipated. So yeah, I'm glad to see the industry that it's driving. And that always kicks the tires on our economy in general and lets us keep an eye on the general pipelines and bottlenecks as well.
I think it's the overlap between Marauders. People love Marauders, and then people love trig ships,
Yeah.
and so a trig Marauder just, like, it happens to be good. But even if it wasn't, I think people would still be building it just because it's so cool. But
Yep.
I kind of have to eat my own words there. Last week on my Oz report, I said the 0 point field manipulators, they're out of control. They're the main component to build Babarogas. They come, that come from trig space, and I said, well, that price is going to come down immediately, because there's no way that
Yeah.
Babaroga demand is going to stay. And this week it's exactly the
Yep.
same price as last week. So still 0 point field manipulators are very much sought after, and about 6 times the price they were a year ago.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see how sustained this will be.
Yeah, I'm gonna say again next week the price will come down.
Yeah,
And
we'll
I'm
see.
still sitting on. Let's just say I'm just still sitting on way too many of them, Okami. But I can't
Nice.
trade being on the CSM right now. So this is the main graph that I've pulled up here in the background. It shows the production we already talked about. It definitely shows also the kind of shift that we've seen in production towards nullsec in the last few weeks and months. But it also shows a steadily increasing mining graph, especially after the March 12th patch, and destruction kind of following, but a little bit slower. So theoretically speaking, we would have a lot more stuff in space to be blown up because we've been mining, we've been producing a lot, but the production is a bit, the destruction is a bit lacking. The next MER is going to show a big spike. We already know that because we've seen some massive battles going on. But what do you think about the interplay between production, mining, and destruction right now?
Yeah, I suspect that we're going to see definitely, like you said, a big spike in the next month. Um, I think overall it's in a pretty healthy spot. I'd love to see that sustained even beyond the war if we can to some extent. Hopefully there's a bit of a hangover, production hangover, and things need to be made afterwards as well.
Yeah, for sure. And right now it's a bit of a double-edged sword because we'll see on the MPI, this one reason why the mineral price index, the MPI, is not dropping is also because production is so high that the demand is there. It's kind of hard. So for just to give you some insight into the discussions that typically CCP and the CSM have without spilling any beans, is obviously it's a question for Okami would have to balance the the demand of the economy with the current level of supply in minerals, and you have to understand whether it's a sustained demand right now or whether it's a spiked demand, and especially in times of war that becomes even more difficult, right, Okami?
Yeah, I think like definitely the war will make it a little bit complicated. And at the end of the day, it's an indicator, right? Like I use that indicator to make informed decisions about what types of changes we want to make and whether things are healthy. And ultimately, the way I kind of abstract it for myself is if people are getting into the ships and doing the activities that they want to do, like that is the healthiest thing. And so, really, both using that as a the canary in the coal mine to tell me if there's a problem, like when we see mining just skyrocketing, like that signals something to me. But then, as it falls, I can start just looking at really like the overall production of ships, the overall destruction, and who's undocking and actually getting out and doing the activities they want. And all the rest, everything else leading up to that point is friction to getting into the thing you really want to do.
Um, the March 12th impact we see quite significantly here because it's that yellow line right here increasing the mining even more. We were already in a good track, but then we had the March 12th impact. Are you looking back at March 12th, like the current level of mining? Is that something that you're happy with? Is that something that you feel was a step in the right direction, or because the MPI came down a little bit, but it didn't come down significantly, as we said, right?
Yeah, I think it was a good significant change. I feel like things are much healthier. Um, it also goes beyond just the MPI, and I know we're here to talk about economics, but I think about
Yeah,
the experience as well, and like talking to players
absolutely.
about being out and mining in nullsec and what the experience is like. Like I think there were some just design issues with how mining worked, and it's in a better spot, so that also drives the MPI up. And like I mentioned earlier, I do think that there's room for us to still play with mining, and I'd really like to take an eye to the rest of the to New Eden at this point too. I think that other places need a little love as well. So I can imagine that will continue to have an impact on the mining index.
I think other places love hearing that, Okami. Although it's you can never win. I mean, with the Eve, I mean,
You can
I
never
have
win.
I have a very mixed community from all types of space. People that are generally interested in economics of Eve, and um, the people that are screaming, Null hasn't nearly have had enough attention versus Null gets all the attention is about 50-50. So
Yeah. Well,
um,
I feel like we've had about three expansions where we've touched things in null. We've
yeah.
rejuvenated enough things for a little while. So
Ooh, that's a touchy word. You know that, right?
yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm here to
Yeah.
have fun. Let's
Yeah.
go.
Very good. Very good. Um. So I'm not gonna. This is basically an overview. Let me just explain this for people that are maybe typically don't look at the MER. This is a very good if you're living in a region of space, or if you want to know what's going on macroeconomically with imports, exports, and mining and ratting in different parts of space. This is a great graph to look at. For example, this month you can see here a a curious move towards Scalding Pass, which isn't as curious anymore if you've seen any of the battle reports that are going on, or an evacuation out of In's mother a little bit, possibly. So this is the kind of stuff you see here, but it's it's more of find your own data point that you find interesting, and then look it up. So I'm going to skip over it and go directly to this graph. Um, this is what we were talking about, Okami. This is the March 12th impact on mining. So we went from about 2 billion cubic meters in volume to about 3 billion, so a 50% increase. A lot of that in nullsec. So that's essentially op success. Can we see more? Is that is that a good level right now?
Yeah, I think it's at a fairly healthy level right now, I'd say, especially in nullsec. I wouldn't want to adjust things too much there.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely more mining to come, but I want to leave null for a little while
Yeah.
and let things settle.
And as you said, it's not all about cubic meters or ISK. It's also about the mining experience, and we have had quite positive feedback on this.
Yep.
Even though
Yeah, for
somebody
sure.
just called mining boring in chat. Can you believe that?
Ah,
Can you believe that?
how are you mining? I have exciting mining happening right now.
Um. So gas gas has increased recently, and one reason why gas mining has increased is because it's an important input to dreadnought production, which is a very popular type of capital ship right now, especially in the wars, and because some interesting dreads have been released in the last few years, and so this is still one of the reasons, or one of the input factors governing the prices of dreads, because it does come from wormholes mostly, and it's rather scarce, because typically wormholes don't mine at industrial levels like nullsec do. This type of bottleneck, what's your thought on it? Of it, are are you happy with the design of it?
Yeah, I think it's okay as a design right now.
Hmm.
To me, again, it's really looking at the end of the chain and seeing if enough people are getting into the ships, like if demand is being met or not. Um, and I think that always open to feedback and looking at changing this, but for the time being, it's working out okay.
I had this discussion with one of our Discord members yesterday. It's the making everything available to everyone, especially large alliances, versus making each type of space unique and forcing people to trade. I think in theory, the latter is almost always the cooler one, from a game design
Hmm.
perspective, because you want people to interact, you want
Yeah.
people to fight, you want people to go to war over resources. I know from being on the CSM that a lot of times the null alliances want less of it because they they inherently say, well, we want to build at industrial scale, and if we have too many bottlenecks from other regions, then we can't do that. And so there's no perfect answer in that. Because it's do you make it, how difficult do you make it, versus what is the benefit of actually having it. Do you came into EVE Online already having a system in place, right? Is that like coming in? What was your initial thought on the way that the regions differ from each other right now in EVE Online?
That's a great big question.
It is.
I think it's okay. This is something that we talk about quite a bit on the economic side in design as well. And I know you talk to some of our other economic oriented designers too. Um, Pieces of it I think that I'm happy with. I like you said, it is somewhat good and healthy, like as a design principle, to say that there are things that are unique to different regions of space, and that forces people to be social, to trade, to interact in different ways. Um, but we are constantly examining whether uh, it is being done right. Um, and something that I'll talk about a little bit in my next dev blog, which I teased in the Discord,
Nice.
as well as some of our tuning and balancing philosophy. So some of the things we're thinking about. Um, and part of this to me is making sure that we are more regularly tending to these things, as we have been kind of doing these sort of bigger hygiene passes at, like, mining's not healthy, let's update it. Okay, let's update it again, and nudge it until we get it to a place where we're happy at the right rate. And then looking at some of these other bottlenecks, tending to them, and making sure that, like I said earlier, people are getting into the right ships, and with just the right amount of friction. Like you still have to do a job to get to the thing you want.
Mm-hmm.
And then over time, we are examining, like whether we have made some of the right shifts, and seeing whether we want to try to um, make bigger changes there as well. So it's all on the table. I think me coming in and being a little fresh made it easier for us to just kind of re-examine those things from a fresh lens as well. So yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. And I can say um, I've felt a fresh wind, with in the last few years, and naturally this is not uh, only you coming in. This is a lot of factors, but I think some things have changed in the communication, in the game design principles, etc. So I think you guys are on the right track right now.
thanks. I
Um,
appreciate that.
yeah, of course. It's not. I think the community appreciates things like things like the March 12th patch, like the communication around it, the uh, quality of life improvements, the little things. Like I think, as long as the communication is good and the reasoning and etc., I think the community is much more forgiving. I've learned, right? It's because they understand. Okay, so maybe you did this because you thought this was what was happen, and this didn't happen. But if you explain why you thought it did,
Yeah.
people are generally fine with it. There's always going to be 10% people that are not.
Yeah. I
um,
mean, Eve is a tremendously complex game, and I and the designers are going to get it wrong sometimes. So the best way to handle that in my mind, like you said, is just to be out there and like talking to folks, and giving our sort of logic and reason behind things, and then making the space to kind of adjust and iterate on that stuff.
I mean, I think a lot of people know this, but possibly some newer players haven't found this out yet. But there are there are a lot of people that have been playing this game for 20 years, me included, that are very good at one thing and have no clue about some parts of the game, right? Like you can come to me and I can talk about the economy all night, but you ask me, to fit a marauder, I'm completely worthless, right? Completely worthless. I might be able to tell
Yeah.
you what the price of it is and what the price of the module and what minerals go into it, but no expert knowledge on the other end, right? Um, and it's the same with a lot of with most other Eve players as well. The game is too big for anyone to understand it, and that's also a big challenge for developers, right? Because developers, even developers, I would say, there's no way. There are very few people at CCP that understand every aspect of Eve, right? And even though they're game
Yeah,
developers, that's just a fact of this complex game.
absolutely. There's a handful of them that I think know it better than anybody I could possibly imagine. But I'm also tremendously lucky to be surrounded by so many uh, players, folks like yourself, and the developers that do know it well.
Oh, there you are. Okay, sorry, your screen froze for a second.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
Metanox is the graph we're looking at in the background here. Something rather big happened last month here in the MER Okami, and that is for the first time we're seeing a clear dropping trend in Metanox adoption here. I think for the longest time we
Hmm.
saw possibly only the hint of a drop, but now it's very clear that at least for R4 and R8 moons, and possibly also R16 moons, we're seeing a move away from Metanoxes, which is not a surprise because you've increased the running cost of Metanoxes over the last few
Yeah.
months. Um, clearly, this was your intention because that's why you increased the running costs. But what are your thoughts on where we are at with Metanox moon mining right now?
Yeah, I think as I mentioned in probably one of my various posts, I don't think we're done here. Like I think that this was a nudge, and it wasn't something that we'd see immediate from that point. So we're starting to see the trend now, which is good. It's having an impact. I think that there's a couple of interesting things at play, which is for one, the Metanox I think is doing something in general positive for Eve. Like I think there's a good thing in the design of it. But obviously, like it is having an impact on things like Pyrite and Moongoose. So we have room to go. Whether that's additional balance, just cost updates, or something more complex, it's up for debate. Like we're still talking about that right now, but we're not done with Metanox, I guess is what I'm saying.
Um, Overall, the adoption has been huge, right? Which I guess if you want to be on the safe side, you introduce something new, you want it to be adopted. So I guess
Yeah.
the way that it happened now, is this the way you prefer it, where you brought in something and it it was wildly popular, but now you have to kind of scale it back a little bit because it I don't want to say wrecked. It impacted some parts of the economy rather negatively, and just for those people that don't think about this every day. Let me just a quick step back. So uh, if you mine moons manually, there is a byproduct. For example, pyrite, the one we're talking about. If you do that through Metanox, you don't necessarily get that byproduct, and so there is more impact to Metanox proliferation rather than just having the moon goo come from a different place and not somebody being out there mining it, which is another factor of it. So Okami, like, are you still happy with the way that Metanoxes were introduced?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it was widely adopted. I think that's for a reason. Like I think there's a role it's fulfilling, which is passive generation. Like it's removing some amount of labor and friction, and allowing people to focus their energy on other places that I think that they might rather be spending some of their time. Um, but did did I want to release a popular feature that also wrecked a part of the economy? No, like totally not. But I think this is fine. Like I think it's okay. I think it's solvable. Like I don't think we're in a forever death spiral that will will last forever now. So in general, I'm happy with it, and as a feature, as the way it works. And I'm glad that it's widely adopted, and now we have a new thing just to keep kind of working on over time.
Now we come to my favorite graph, right? I skip all these regional graphs, which are interesting, but not, not really good for stream analysis. But this is my favorite graph because it shows the ISK sinks and faucets in EVE Online. For those of you that are new to economic streams, so the faucets are activities in game that generate ISK out of nowhere. Essentially, it's injecting money supply into the game economy. And faucets are activities that suck ISK out of the system. And so overall, you want, likely in most situations, some sort of balance between ISK sinks and faucets, because if you're injecting way more ISK into the economy that compared to how much you're sucking out on the bottom, then you have something called inflation. And it's a little bit more complicated like that, but then if everyone has more ISK going around, typically prices rise. That's what happens in the real economy as well, and that's what will happen in EVE. So if we're, and let me see if I can zoom on here a little bit. Yeah. If we look at this calculation right here, what this shows is a beginning of month money supply of 2,478 trillion ISK and a month-end supply of 2,499, which is historically speaking, a very good balance. And the reason that is because faucets are about 160 trillion, which was, rather high. We'll look at it in comparison in a second here. But also sinks were very high, especially tied to what you can see down here, and that is the transaction tax, which was massive. The reason that is a sink is because every time you do a transaction, part of the value, the fees and all of the fees and the taxes and fees that you pay go out of the system. And we had a lot of trade last month, especially related to skill extractors and Plex, because there were massive sales going on. And so anytime that happens, a lot of ISK leaves the economy, which gives you, CCP Okami, more playing room on the faucet side, right? So typically speaking, you like when the sinks are high because you can give more money out at the top and make people happy for, or make maybe, let me say, I can say this, economically challenged players happy in the short term.
That's right.
With some short-term chemical boosts. So the other interesting number here is that we have a positive active ISK delta for the second month in a row. And what that means is that on the average, if a player is not active for 3 months, his or her ISK goes out of the system. It's not counted anymore. If they come back, it's counted as part of the active ISK delta. And that is then added or subtracted to GM actions like bot bans, for example. And that's how we get the active ISK delta. Typically, that number is negative in many months, and then it is wildly positive for an expansion because people come back. That is just the nature of gaming. Now we've had 2 months in a row related to the war, related to 7-day free Omega, always a good one to bring people back into the game, to an expansion, and also some good sales that you've been running. Those are the 4 reasons that I can see, right? Does that match what you were expecting?
Yeah, I think that summarizes it pretty well, Oz.
And is this like something that you look at? I mean, this is probably an indirect number. I imagine you have a much more direct number of looking at, player numbers and daily active users, etc. But the active ISK delta, is that a number that you consider, or is that just like a secondary effect that doesn't really matter all that much to you?
It does matter. I think the total faucets is something that I'm more interested in the more of the time personally. Like you said, I think when those are healthy, that gives us room in design to do cool things, right? So that's more of my interesting and exciting space for me, but definitely is something that we have a look at.
Um, if we, I want to look at this graph right here. If we look at these sinks and faucets over time, we see something interesting, and that is in the transaction tax, the purple line on the bottom, we see that last July it was halved. It was, and this was, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was just before your time, I think. Yeah.
Yeah,
At the
just
beginning. Yeah.
it was after my time, but I still had no idea what I was doing at that point. So,
It
uh,
was we have the transaction tax, and that was the biggest sink at the time. So it took away some of the, I think, wiggle room that you would have on the faucet side. Uh, you know, the reasons there might be a myriad of reasons of why you would do that. One could be to stimulate the economy. Anytime you cut taxes, you hope that maybe ISK velocity goes up and people trade more if they pay less taxes. I think we didn't see, at least I didn't see in the numbers, a big impact from that, and so I think it was correct to kind of revert that back to its original number or close to it. And so now we're seeing not only you going back to that, which adds about 15. It sucks about 15 trillion, I think, out of in
it's pretty
taxes out of the
huge, yeah.
system. It's massive. And then also now we're seeing the impact of the Babaroga expansion. Sorry, the Legion expansion.
We could call it the Babaroga expansion now.
um, and also the massive skill extractor sale that we also saw there. So overall, there's been a very good, a large amount of ISK being sucked out of the system, which now allows you to add more at the top. Right. So are you happy with the way that the sales tax adjustment went?
Yeah, I am, and I mean, hats off to you, Oz. I know you were a huge advocate for this change, so this was another example of the CSM working. um, I think you're totally right. There was some experimentation around seeing if we could affect things like trade volume by having
Mm-hmm.
lower taxes. Um, Worth trying, but ultimately it didn't yield the results we wanted. So we went back, and that's probably factoring into the healthy balance between our faucets and sinks right now. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with it. I mean, I'll put it this way: I don't love taxes. I don't love taxes as a design principle, but sinks are important, and it is an important sink to keep the game economy healthy. So I'm happy with the way it's impacting Eve right now.
I'm going to do myself a disservice here, but let's just say people typically, at least the ones that are active out in the Eve community and on Discord and Twitch and YouTube, they know that I was wildly in favor of this, and I mention it pretty much every week. And while you would expect a whole lot of pitchforks if you double the sales tax rate, there was about 2.5 people that contacted me about it. Right? I mean, and about
Yeah.
50 that said, "Yeah, fantastic! Finally, we have the money supply back under control, and we're not at risk as at inflation if we have another Christmas event like we typically do." So I mean, I'd much rather have the Christmas, hey everyone, here's a bunch of ISK event once a year where people are very happy
Yeah.
and people come back to the game and get some ISK for it, rather than people paying half the sales tax and not even noticing it, because if you asked most people, they didn't notice last July that it was changed. So I think um it's it's very much, it's very much, I think, a very good move. And as you say, I mean, obviously I would say that because I fought for it, but I do think that the community reaction was also um similar. um yeah, and the big faucets here, trick data and overseer personal effects were the big faucets that increased in the last month, and that is Pretty much it's the events, right? It's the Capsuleer Day event that we saw and the various lore events that we've seen. And that is the way that CCP injects the faucets into the economy that are then get sucked out in transaction tax. But it's not as surprising though. I mean, is this like, do you how do you as a game director decide, as a game design director decide, okay, how much ISK are we going to inject here? I'm pretty sure I know you guys look at spreadsheets and you try to predict that beforehand, but it's
Yeah.
it's very much difficult to predict how many sites people are going to run per hour and that sort of stuff, right? So that's difficult.
Yeah, it is. It's very difficult, and sometimes we get it right, and sometimes we don't. Luckily, we have a lot of historical information to go off of, so we can look at how did Winter Nexus do last year, and how many people ran those sites, and if we distributed them this way, um, what did that yield? How long on average does a site take? And so we can kind of make some good guesses and model some things around that, which gives us some space, and then we can look at the overall position of the economy with its sinks and faucets and decide like, hey, let's turn this one up a little bit, or in the cases of some of our smaller events or lore events, like if something isn't yielding enough, good motivation for players to go run them, then we can try to bump those events up and stuff. So yeah, there's a little rigor around that, and I think like the historical data helps us a lot as well.
Yeah, I would love to say, just make them fun and the ISK doesn't matter, but we're talking about EVE Online. So
Yeah. Yeah.
the people that unfortunately
This is the extrinsic motivation has to be
it's
there.
it's insane. And I honestly, like, I mean, my play style is see number go up. So I mean, I just I can't argue against these people. Um so this is the money supply graph that I mentioned earlier. So this is the result of ISK coming in, ISK getting sucked out, and then active ISK delta playing in. We can see that the years 2022 to beginning of 2025 were a period of increasing money supply. And part of this is you have to look at it in the context of the amount of players, right? Because this is not per capita. This is the overall money supply. So if, for example, very, very rich veterans come back to fight a war, then that increases the available money supply in game immediately. And that is something that CCP has very little control over, right? Nevertheless, over the last few months, the last 5 months have been rather stable. And part of that was because there were certain very large ISK faucets put under control. For example, C5, C6 wormhole ISK generation, and then also Pochven as a step. Are
Mhm.
there other big faucets? And I know that's very touchy to say, but I like those were the two big ones that I was always arguing for taking care of. Right? Is there
Yep.
others right now that you guys are looking at, even if you can't say that which ones they are?
I mean we're always looking. I think there will probably be some more updates in the next little while that you'll all hear about too. Um, and really like yeah, the Poshfin changes were a good shout. Always trying to look at the risk to ISK, right? Like how risky and how much effort is something to the amount of money being made. Um, yeah, and it's a tough balance, but the short answer is yes, Oz. We're looking at more things.
Stay tuned. Somebody in chat is
Yeah,
asking
stay
whether
tuned.
this is trillions, quadrillions, billions. So this is 2,500 trillion ISK. So uh I guess what comes after
Just a little
trillion in
bit.
English. I'm always confused, Okami, because in German we actually like a billion in German is not a billion in English, which is the dumbest thing ever. But
Okay.
yeah. So the German billion is not the American billion. So I'm not even going to attempt. I'm going to just say what's on here. It's 2,500 trillion.
A quadrillion.
2.5 quadrillion. Thank you. You said it, so now I can just quote you. And then the last one I want to look at is the velocity of ISK. This is the one we touched on earlier when we said, okay, maybe cutting taxes is going to drastically increase the amount of trade people are doing, because what you're looking at here is the velocity of ISK, which means the amount of times one ISK changes hands over 30 days. So right now, you can't see this because it's strategically covered by our faces. But it's if you look at the pink number down here, which is the ISK removing contracts and Plex related items, right? So essentially, only the market related ISK velocity, without about 60% of the market, which is Plex, skill injectors, and skill extractors. And that number is about 0.3. And I said earlier that last July, the taxes were cut in half. And as you can see here, we haven't really had a change in the ISK velocity since 2023. So clearly there wasn't a big impact on this. What we do see changing in here is contracts and Plex related items, because, and there's a lot of overlap between the two, by the way. So Plex injectors and extractors have been traded a lot because they have been put on sale a lot more recently than they used to. And, nowadays, when we have events like that I call Plexageddon, right? When the market basically runs out of Plex because skill extractors are so cheap that everyone needs to buy Plex to buy skill extractors. We see those events clearly here, but we don't see a lot of impact on the overall market. I think it's a bit concerning, Okami, to be honest, because I come from a time in EVE where this velocity was a lot higher and a lot more assets, and ISK wasn't stale sitting around somewhere, but was being traded more actively. What can you do about it? What do you want to do about it? What's the deal with this velocity?
Yeah. Good question. I wasn't there for that time, so I don't know what the graph
That's a good
back
answer.
then looks like. I guess I can look back then. What do I want to do about it? Is it concerning? Yeah, I mean, to an extent, I think like this says to me like is there some amount of wealth hoarding happening, and why aren't people spending? And ultimately, hoarding is in any game, but Eve is the end boss of game design. I think it's always a challenging thing to solve, and really looking for making sure that like there is a good reason to spend ISK in the game, and not just on Plex and Plex adjacent items, like you say, but like in Eve for Eve reasons. And so a lot of the work we're doing and we're trying to do is to make sure that things get in the right spot where folks feel motivated and incentivized to go do things like go to war,
Exactly.
like is happening right now. And it's a fine dance between things like reducing capital ship costs and also making things like skyhooks easier to capture, so there's less effort or friction to conquest. And it's all of these things that then can contribute to war, which can contribute to spending ISK. And yeah, it is a difficult dance. It could be better, and it's just constantly trying to um, look at what will motivate people to get out there and go fight each other in space and spend that money.
I think absolutely. I think war is the easiest way to get there. It's the easiest way to get that number, its velocity up, because people, I think the alliances are sitting on a lot of expensive ships that are not that are often not being flown unless they absolutely have to, because they are so expensive right now. So a combination of reducing super capital prices and always trying to incentivize war, because war makes Eve. Let's just be honest. Like war is good for new player recruitment. It's good for CCP commercials. It's good for player retention. It's good for so many things in Eve Online. So that is one very big difference from between Eve Online and the real world economy. And let's keep it that way.
Yeah,
Always favor destruction.
exactly. Yeah, I mean, destruction is a huge metric that Rattati talks about a lot, the impact of destruction. And in game design, it's more about us looking at and thinking about the motivation that leads to that destruction, and making sure there's a reason to want to go fight, to want to get in space and do things with your
Yeah,
fancy expensive
and
ships.
embrace the player generated stories, right? I mean, anytime you see
Yep.
when a goon move in October makes headlines and gets covered in what is it? Is it the Guinness Book of World Records now, the largest
Yeah,
move?
that's right. Yeah,
um,
I think I don't know if it's official, but I think we're chatting with them.
yeah, and anything like that um, is what makes Eve unique. And to be honest, the reason that I play Eve is all of this we talked about today. It's the what game has a monthly economic report, right? What game can you actually talk 45 minutes about what's going on in the economy? And I do this every week, and
Yep.
so keep on doing what you're doing. Favor destruction whenever you can, and make those capitals cheaper, please, Okami.
Working on it. We're working on it. And you might even actually see something related to that soon. I'll just tease you guys. So
Very good. Very good. Okami, any last messages to the economy, to the economy, to the Okami economy, before we wrap up here?
uh nothing major. Just thanks so much again, everybody, for all of your consistent feedback. Please, again, Discord is my space. I like to have more direct interaction. So if you have feedback, there is a Legion feedback thread. I'd love to hear from you. We're actively deep into thinking about what comes next in our next major update and the next expansion later this year. So if there's something that matters to you, I'd love to hear about it. Please get in there and let us know.
Awesome. Great. Well, Okami, thanks for stopping by, and we're going to let you go, and then we're going to jump into a regular Oz report that I typically do. It's a 10-15 minute update, so everyone stay tuned as I rearrange the screen a little bit, and then we'll jump straight into that. Thank you, Okami. Bye bye.